Jai Guru, everyone.
Yeah,
Hey, Guru. And welcome to Autobiography of a Yogi, line by line. We are on chapter 27, and we're starting a new chapter today, so it's very exciting. We have Priyank with us, and Chris, and myself. Hello.
Hello.
Hi all.
Hello, hello. Are you guys ready to jump in?
Yes.
Yeah.
New chapter we're flying through.
I know. I was thinking that when I was looking at the contents page with the chapters, it's gone to the other side now of the page. So,
Yeah,
we're getting there. Yeah.
It's a pinch of sadness.
I know, yeah. Yeah. But I think we still have a long way to go. We're not
No,
quite halfway, are we? Let me
yeah,
see my copy of
many
my
more
book.
projects in the pipeline after.
It looks pretty halfway.
Pretty solidly halfway.
Yeah, there's 49 in total. So 27. Oh yeah, I guess we are more than halfway. Woo. All
Yeah.
right. So what have we got to look forward to in this chapter? Well, this chapter is all about when Guruji founds a school in Ranchi and how he is directed by Sri Yukteswar and inspired by Lahiri Mahashaya, and how that all plays out, and how we see Guruji really build a curriculum that's balanced for his students, which I have to say, as a teacher, is really inspiring, and you think, oh, if only the curriculum was like that here. And we also have a meeting with a Swami in the book. I won't reveal too much, but they have some very interesting conversations in there. And we have some more miracles as well that play out. So are we ready? Yes, Priyank.
Are we looking into our chapter thoughts and insights yet?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So what do we think about this chapter so far when we've read it again? Is there anything that comes to mind? What do you think, Priyank?
I'm looking forward to delving deeper into Guruji's passions for an ideal education, or his passion back then, and comparing it to what we have now in the West. I think we did cover a little bit of this in the Awake, but it would be nice now that we have a teacher on board, as if by magic. I'm also excited to see how Sri Yukteswar, his father, and even his little siblings all play their little part in making this magic happen for Swami Yogananda as he was then. I'm looking forward to unwrapping the story of Guruji and the deer and their little fawn. I feel like there's some profoundness in there, so I'll look forward to that and how he became attached and then detached himself from that soul. And also, finally, as Lauren mentioned, the Swami Pranavananda, and he was one of the Mahashaya's disciples, makes a kind of little entrance, a re-entrance into the book here, and this is the last time we kind of hear about him and how he vacated his mortal frame. And then the school grounds, there's a picture of the school grounds, Ranchi School, which is now the YSS headquarters. So we'll obviously talk about that picture and YSS as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting chapter for all the reasons that you both mentioned, so I'll not repeat those. But I'm thinking, given the previous chapter, the science of Kriya Yoga, I wouldn't say this kind of crashes back down to ground, as it were, but certainly from Yogananda's experience, we're going to look at what it means for him to go through the aches and pains of the everyday running of an organization such as a school, and how his heart, let's say, desires to be in meditation. That's what his desire is, but yet he sacrifices this sort of time, as it were. So it's going to be really interesting to delve into that in more detail, and thinking back to the first time when I read it, I didn't really think about it in that context. So I'm looking forward to putting myself in Guruji's shoes a bit more this time, and going through everything that you both mentioned there. as well. So let's go.
Yeah, he went on such a journey, didn't he, to build what we have today. And when I was thinking about the chapter, I had an even deeper appreciation for our path and where we are, because without Guruji going through all of these things and overcoming those things in himself, in this Leela for us, that meant that this organization, SRF, YSS, could be what it is. It's quite amazing. It was really amazing to me. And yeah, sparks a lot of gratitude as well. So yeah, for this episode, we are just going to, I say just, but we are going to dive into the beginnings of Guruji building a school and how that came to be and what that looked like and the conversations that he had with his guru, Sri Yukteswar. So to start, we really are beginning at the beginning of the organizational work. And the first line of the chapter starts off with Sri Yukteswar saying, "Why are you averse to organizational work?" And I thought this was quite interesting. I don't know what you both think, but I certainly feel like at points in my life, I've felt like an aversion to doing those sort of everyday normal jobs or tasks or those kind of things where it's like, oh, you just want to run away into the forest, but actually, no, you've got duties to do, right? And I used to feel that a lot when I was a bit younger, not really now. But yeah, it was an interesting first line. What did you think, Priyank?
Yeah, I share what's Sri Yukteswar is challenging Mukunda in. I was probably still a little bit am in that camp. I'm averse to organizational work, and when I came to the center, I didn't want to do any volunteer work. I just wanted to meditate. I just wanted to use it as a place for my meditation and practice. And then pretty much from the very first day, Guruji forced me to take up quite a lot of responsibility, and it hasn't really ever dwindled. But it was essential because I've grown so much through it. So I'm very thankful for those opportunities and for Guruji kind of like forcefully twisting my arm to accept those roles that I'm quite privileged to do at the center.
Yeah. Just for anyone listening, the reason why I said wow is because Priyank is such a pillar of the London Centre and he does so much. It's almost, it really is a 180 thing to imagine that, you had such an aversion to it. And wow, yeah, we're very blessed to have you
Very
serving
sweet.
as
But
much as you do.
the gap between what could be done and what is done. Oh.
Yeah, but you do your best.
A daren't stated. Yeah, I do. I try.
Yeah. Yeah, so in this moment with Sri Yukteswar and Guruji, his question startles Guruji. And he says that he thinks that organizations are hornets' nests, which really made me laugh when I read it. I thought that was quite an amusing wording. And he said that it was a thankless task. And, no matter what the leader does, he's criticized. So, this is also quite interesting because, in the Gita, we're taught, and on the path too, that, you do things for God and not for the reward, right? Not for the fruit or the thanks. But I think the sentiment here is quite telling, isn't it? Yeah, you're not necessarily going to be thanked all the time because no matter what you do or not do, you might be blamed for something or other. But I think now I could say that Guruji's, done something that we all are very thankful for, right? So
Yep.
yeah. And then in this moment, Sri Yukteswar was saying, well, do you want the whole, what does he call it? Chana for yourself, the whole divine chana, which is milk curd for yourself alone. And then he says, could you or anyone else achieve God communion through yoga if a line of generous-hearted masters had not been willing to convey their knowledge to others.
You know, a thought came to me whenever you were asking the questions about this organizational work. We have such a limited view and memory now compared to what total memory we may have if we could see all of our past lives, right? And so the answer is limited to what we can see now, right? And our experience in this life. But could you imagine how much you benefited from other people's sacrifice doing this type of work over the millennia, over the how many lifetimes we've all shared and, you know, benefited from somebody else's organizational efforts. And so what Sri Yukteswar is saying here is this divine jhana. You're sort of paying it forward as well, because Yogananda is saying it's a thankless task. But that might be in this sort of limited view that we have. It might be pretty much thankless. No one's going to pat you in the back, and maybe you don't get many rewards now, but in the longer lifespan, let's say that you have as a soul, if you want to talk about it that way, you know, the payback is going to be great, right? So I guess it all depends on the context of, you know, the span of which you're considering the question.
I think no matter what capacity you serve, you will have blessings. It's just whether or not you can perceive them.
I cleaned the toilets at the center before. I did it happily.
Nice. Were you aware of what blessings you received for having done that selfless task?
No, I kind of laughed to myself because I thought people say it like the smallest of tasks, you know, you get rewards for. And I laughed to myself like, well, this must be a great reward. So selfishly, I kind of thought to myself that, yeah, eventually it's the one that you want to do.
The reason I say it is because a lot of people are averse to, or they don't volunteer because they think, oh, I'm not qualified, I don't have any skills. And it's amazing that how much there is to do at the center. It's like you can any day you can go at any time and there's something to do. I every time I leave, I'm like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. But if I keep doing those things, I'll be there past hours, you know, till midnight or however long. So I literally have to leave. But you just have to have your eyes open. Like some people need to be told what needs to be done, and that's obviously in the beginning that's the case. But then when you like commit yourself to the center and start serving, you'll see like the plethora of things that things like Chris, you mentioned the toilet, or little bits of dust, or chairs being misaligned. There's so many things. It's just unbelievable, and I'd really encourage people to volunteer.
Yeah, me too. I mean, very selfishly, it's such a beautiful feeling to be serving at the center, because it feels even more direct, that kind of offering, just because of where you are and what you're doing. But yeah, I mean,
these days, just that most of us spend far too much time doing things that we shouldn't do anyway. Let's be honest, most people are on their phones, they're watching TV.
No.
I know, shocking fact. But using your time, you kind of get a little bit tired from it. But like you said, Lauren, it's kind of like a selfishly, rewarding task, because you're optimizing your time anyway, and it's very rewarding. It might be tiring and draining in some ways, but it's the best kind of way to use your time if you have extra time. In this modern age.
Yeah, and I find it very uplifting. No matter how I'm feeling, even if I'm feeling really off, in myself, if I go and I serve, it doesn't matter what, but I always just feel so much better afterwards. And I don't do it to feel better, but just actually like that moment of like humbly serving, even when you're not at your best, can be just as meaningful is when you are really feeling your best too, and you're feeling really devotional and all of that. Like it's such like a dynamic event when you serve in different ways. And yeah, like Priyank said, would highly recommend it if you have a center or anywhere nearby.
Yep.
But yeah, but we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for Guruji and Sri Yukteswar and all of the line of gurus, and like you said, Chris, all the ones before that as well. And Sri Yukteswar describes organizations as, well, he said, God is the honey, organizations are the hives, both are necessary. And he said, any form is useless, of course, without the spirit, but why should you not start busy hives full of the spiritual nectar?
It's very inspirational, this, isn't it? Because we each have a part to play in this divine scheme. Because, he started by saying, could you or anyone else, achieve God communion if a line of generous-hearted masters didn't, didn't provide and convey their knowledge to others? But we're not masters. But we can certainly work in the hive, as worker bees. So we have a very small but significant part in the drawing of the nectar to create the honey for the hive, which is the spirit, which Guruji Sri Yukteswar is talking about. So, yeah, it's an inspiration for us to think that we actually are quite a critical part of it, the hive. Even, in whatever capacity, even this podcast in some way, we hope.
Yeah. And, I think even if you don't serve in that capacity, doing your sadhana is service to others. Because, when we better ourselves, that directly impacts everybody who we meet. And, the person that they meet, and then how they're going to respond and how they feel. And it's such a interwoven thing, isn't it? So really, sometimes, I remind myself, quite frequently that the spiritual practice isn't just for me. It's for other people too, and their benefit. So that adds like another layer.
Well said, because Guruji says your own self-realization is the greatest gift you can give to the world, right? So it's all part and parcel. So it's not selfish.
Well, partly
to cover your way,
Okay. Yeah.
Selfish with a capital S.
Yeah. I remember just going off piece a little bit here, but on the topic, I remember when I was applying for Kriya, and you have the call with the monk or the nuns, and I said to her, I'm just really struggling with this unconditional love aspect that I'm going to have to, that we're asked to have, right, for God, because actually I feel like it is conditional because I want something from him. I want my realization, right? Like, and that's a condition because that's part of why I want to be on the path. And she did laugh a bit and she said, I think that's okay. You're allowed to be selfish like that and ask for those things. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's asking but not demanding. It's not like I'll do this so that you give me that. It's I guess, yeah, you're right. It's the attitude of the still is important, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the chapter. So Sri Yukteswar's made this comment, and it really touches Guruji and it moves him very deeply. And he makes this adamant resolution that he says, so far as lay in my power, I would share with my fellows the unshackling truths I had learned at my Guru's feet. And then he prayed, Lord, may thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of my devotion, and may I be able to awaken thy love in all hearts, which is a prayer we all know and love and use frequently.
I wonder if it's Guruji's favorite prayer, this one. And this would have probably been the genesis of that prayer for him in this present incarnation, because since that prayer he kind of has committed, or he did commit to a lifetime of service to not only humanity but his disciples, and creation of SRF and YSS. Yeah, it's we're thankful that he took on the ropes and the reins.
For some reason, this moment really reminds me of the God's Boatman poem. I wonder when that poem was penned, but that kind of thought of, I'm going to come back for my brothers and sisters, and make sure no one's left behind. And it's not directly linked, but it does just make me think about it. So now Guruji having just, oh yes, Chris,
So
go.
I couldn't find it button. Yeah, I think he did say that this was his, I think, did he say favorite, or did he say something along the lines of most critical or important one? It's something like that, yeah. So whether it was his favorite or he thought this was the most significant prayer for him, because you're giving, everything to God. Like, this is, may thy love shine forever in the sanctuary of my devotion, may be able to awaken thy love in our hearts. So this is the one that I repeat the most, actually. It's really simple, but I think the potency Guruji mentioned is extremely high in this simple sentence of a prayer, which is, could it be any other way, really? The simplicity in it, there's beauty, right? I think you're correct, Frank, in saying Guruji's said that this was one that was closest to his heart, at the very least.
And it encompasses the love for God and then the service to humanity, right? And actually it's all one, really. But yeah, it's such a powerful prayer.
It's like the longer form translation or meaning of our organization's name, Self-Realization Fellowship. It's all kind of like an explanation of what that means.
Yeah,
exactly. So then, now Guruji has a responsibility for a very large spiritual family. And interestingly enough, Sri Yukteswar, before Guruji joined the monastic order, made a very unusual remark to Guruji. And he said, "How you will miss the companionship of a wife in your old age. Do you not agree that the family man engaged in useful work to maintain his wife and children thus plays a rewarding role in God's eyes?" I'm just going to pause here because I'm really curious about what you two think about this. And, you were both married, so I'm very interested to hear what you think, being on the married side of the coin.
No, Chris is first. Chris definitely first.
Sorry, I've really thrown in that question there. You don't have to answer if you're not.
No, it's a curious one, right? Because in my context, where I grew up in a world of Northern Ireland and Christianity dominating with Protestant Catholics and all that jazz, I think of the priests and the ministers, all these men and women that would be living a life of celibacy and not having married and so on. So that's what comes to my mind. And that's just because of the environment and context in which I grew up, and how it's related to what Kriya Yoga is saying here. But where my mind goes to is that so many of us are lacking the information that we have through Guruji's teachings as to how to live, which is kind of what we're going to talk about through his schooling, what he actually teaches in the schooling, the how to live schools. And the purpose of life, and you kind of go up the ladder of thought there. and how we're missing so much of that in society. So the common thread is in society is to, get married, have children. If you don't, you're not going to have the support. You're not going to have a satisfied life. And in some ways, it's like you're trying to fill an empty void, but the empty void could be realized through practice of yoga and these teachings and so on. So that's where my mind goes, and how many of us are missing the beautiful teachings of wisdom and that our gurus have passed on to us.
My reflect. Thanks, Chris. I agree. Chris and I have had this discussion on this topic a few times. How I read this is undoubtedly true. What Sri Yukteswar is saying, that it's it's seen as favorable or rewarding, because I think that there's like, in my simple mind, there's 4 layers. Firstly, do you do useful work to maintain yourself? Even that is one aspect of dharma, or like your duty. Secondly, then can you expand that little bubble to those dearest to you, i.e. your children, your family, your mum, your dad, your siblings, etc. And then if you can, even that is good, right? Because you're becoming a bit more selfless then. I think most of us can at least do that level of expansion of our little bubble of ourself. And then the next stage is to your society, or your friend circle. And then that's a little bit more, right? And then the last circle is to the whole of humanity. And that is like that's the whole, and the full, the complete version, isn't it? So it's like getting bigger, bigger and bigger. And so it's all a step by step process. And I remember this specifically about this wife, having a family. It's quite present in most religions, isn't it? I remember this week we've been interviewing for jobs in my team, and I interviewed one of my old friends, who's a devout Christian, and I told my co-interviewer, I said, okay, so I don't know how willing you are, but he won't ever lie. He'll do things to the letter because he's answering to God. He won't answer to us. He'll answer to God because he's a very devout Christian. Anyway, so we had a really good interview. And then after the interview, because we knew each other, he was like, tell me what's going on, what's new with you. You must have loads of kids now. I know you got married 10 years ago. I was like, no, I didn't know. We're just walking away from the interview. I knew from his position, he's got 3 children. I knew from his position, he thinks it's kind of a duty, if you can, to have children and propagate, goodness through family and, establishing those principles. And he's like, yeah, we need to catch up. And I was like, oh no, I don't know how I'm going to put this whole, the world is my family paradigm to him, but it's quite a difficult one to explain without getting him to read the whole Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yeah.
Good luck, Priya.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's staging an intervention with you. Wow, yeah. But in this instance with Guruji, he protested when Sri Yukteswar made that comment about having a wife and children and maintaining them. And he said, you know that my desire in this life is only for the cosmic beloved. And Sri Yukteswar laughed so merrily. Then Guruji understood that what he had said was just a test.
And the best test that Guruji gives us is one that's as closely mimics real life as possible. Because what Sri Yukteswar is saying, you can't really refute it. It is good to, expand your circle and have a family and be selfless. So Guruji has to really think about what he's saying. And I know Sri Yukteswar is kind of saying it in jest, to kind of get this kind of nectar out of Swami Yogananda. But it's a really good test, I think, that obviously is Swami Yogananda passed.
Thank goodness for us. But this is where it gets very interesting for me. Sri Yukteswar then starts to say something very important. And he says, remember that he who rejects the usual worldly duties can justify himself only by assuming some kind of responsibility for a much larger family. So when he says worldly duties, do you think that means having a wife and children? Is that what he's talking about?
I actually think sorry, Lauren. It would be the opposite of leading a hedonistic life. Yeah, which is popular these days. I've even had, I'll not say the people I've worked with, saying that they're hedonists, they're hedonistic, that's the life that they choose to live, which essentially is deeply selfish. So it's the opposite of living of a selfish and hedonistic life. That's how I think of it.
Okay. But then having just talked about having a wife and kids, is that not what he's saying though? As in, like, if you're not going to get married and have kids, you can only justify that if you're going to then take a responsibility for a larger family, as in a larger group of people. Is that what he's saying?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's because it is good, as Priyank said, if you're good to propagate goodness and bring souls in and nurture and so on, it's great, so it's a big sacrifice. If you don't do that, you better do something better. You've got to do something more,
Yeah. Because I was thinking, at this present moment in time, I don't have, a strong desire to get married or anything like that. So I was thinking, oh, phew, am I off the hook then? If I'm a teacher, does this count as, a wider family? What do you think?
I absolutely love the concept of this quote, and it's so profound, and I try and convey it whenever I'm challenged with, oh, why don't you have children? You're wasting your life. You're not fulfilling your purpose. You've got so much good to offer. All these very standard arguments that parents and others and friends as well. Mostly parents and friends that are invested in that way of life as well. I found often they're the ones that are most vehement in that kind of that argument. But to really imbibe what this quote is, assuming a responsibility for a much larger family is probably the truest test, I think, to self-realization fellowship, because there's that saying where blood is thicker than water, and everyone accepts that saying, but this is a complete challenge to that saying, because what Guruji is saying is essentially that blood is not it's an illusion that you think that your relatives are different from those that aren't your relatives. So it's an illusion that you think this is your son when the person who's homeless on the street isn't your son. This is all an illusion. But it's one thing to say this, that you're living by this paradigm, but it's another to actually do it. Like Mother Teresa, for example, she's a very classic case in point who has kind of lived this ideal, I think. Anyone she would, from the poorest man to the most diseased leper to the richest man, she kind of treated every single one of those the same. So there's a really, really high ideal, and I think it's easy to say, but to do is another level.
It goes back to what we talked about many moons ago now about the duty that Yogananda had, that he couldn't just retreat to the mountain range like he wanted to. Often tried to escape to do that, because he has this greater family to build, through us. We're all now part of that. So not even Yogananda in this sense can do it. So it's this thing that eats away at all of us, that in the back of your mind, through the medulla oblongata, God's speaking to us all, to take action. And this is the duty that this action, this duty that Sri Teshwar is referring to here.
The one benefit of having children and a family is because this is from what I observe anyway. Parents do develop this really selfless and pure love for their children. And it is selfless and pure, and they should be able to be much more experienced in transferring that selflessness to others than someone like myself who hasn't invested in that kind of that relationship or those tested those kind of waters. But for me, I can say it and do it, and then tomorrow I can go back to a different way of life. Whereas a parent, it's a lifetime investment of that kind of way of thinking.
Yeah, I often think that about my parents, particularly my mother, about that, selfless love and how strong that is in her. And I think that's maybe partly what Sri Tesh was talking about here when he says that they play a rewarding role in God's eyes, because that whole notion of selfless love was quite a big thing, isn't it, to be able to have within yourself.
Yeah. I was going to touch on this. We're probably going off tangents here, but it is such an interesting topic. But again, if we zoom out over how many lifetimes we've had, how have we channeled Divine Mother? How have we channeled Divine Father through our love, selfless love for our family members? So by which we've had families, and by which we're literally becoming godlike. We're showing godliness through our channeling of that divine love, and we're through the forcing mechanism of a family. But now Guruji and the Guru's teachings is that if you relinquish yourself from that, then you've got to channel some other way this divine love. But it is interesting to think about that, actually, because to your point, when I want to try to drum up some devotional fervor when I'm meditating, especially for Divine Mother, I think of my mom, and then that sort of triggers me and allows me to build that. So very fortunate that I can do that, because not everybody can. But that then teaches me that this divine love has come through my mom, and then I'm also able to see that and feel that through her love.
Yeah.
It's just this teaching, God's constantly trying to teach us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very special. I remember I was having a conversation with my colleagues, and they were asking me if I ever wanted children. And I was quite adamant that no, absolutely not. I think children are wonderful, but not to have of my own. And
you're like, oh, you're so selfish.
I know it's very selfish, but I just don't have the desire at all yet. I haven't ever, and it hasn't sprung itself upon me. So, yeah, and I was saying, that I didn't want them, and my colleague who was a mother, she said, but it will change your life, and you don't know what you're missing out on until you become a parent. She wasn't trying to persuade me, but she was just saying, the fact, that love, that thing that mothers have with their children. It's such a special sacred thing, isn't it? But yeah, so quite interesting to hear from mothers and parents. Parents always say that they can't imagine their life without their children, right? And like you said, Priyank, it's that development of selfless love, really, isn't it? And it's very beautiful. So it was, I guess, now Swami Yogananda's responsibility to become father and mother whilst building an organization for students and young people to develop them in their lives, because that's what parents are, aren't they? They help you to grow. And he said that right education for the youth had always been really close to his heart, and he saw that the usual instruction for Schooling just was aimed at the development of the body and the intellect, but the moral and the spiritual values were really missing. And that he says that no man can approach happiness, and that was lacking in the formal curriculum. So without appreciating those moral and spiritual things, you can't be happy, and that isn't part of the curriculum, which is very interesting because I think now in modern times we are nowhere near there, but we're getting there very, very, very slowly. I was learning something about how there's something in place in the UK called SMSC, which is spiritual, mental, social, and cultural development. And it's actually a part of the curriculum, and schools have to demonstrate that they are developing their students in all these 4 areas. And the spiritual side is obviously very interesting for me. And it's about developing yourself as a whole person, how you interact with the world, how you relate to others, what are your beliefs? How do you respond to situations? Are you able to kind of navigate situations in a healthy way, that kind of thing? And, religion as well coming into it. So it's really nice to see that there's kind of some steps we're making headway, but nowhere near as great as what Guruji has to offer. That would be great to have everywhere. So Guruji had a very strong determination now that he was going to found a school where young boys could develop to the full stature of manhood. And the first step was that he had 7 children at Dihika, which is a small country site in Bengal.
Indeed. And it's now an ashram, the Hika. It's a very beautiful little ashram. I went a couple of years ago. And I think one of the 7 boys probably would have been his younger brother, Vishnu. We have it confirmed in the later pages that he certainly was confirmed to have joined the larger school in that it becomes Ranchi. But I think he was also one of the initial 7 as well.
Wow, that's really interesting. Huh. Yeah, so thinking about how Guruji wanted to develop these young people, I was thinking if there was anything in the Gita about this. And then in chapter 2, verse 29, it was talking about those innate things that each person has. And then obviously you can develop them through right education and instruction, right? So Chris, would you be all right to read that out for us?
Yes. In all of the schools, the academic curriculum and spiritual routine were balanced with recreation, sports, and picnics and hikes to nearby.
Not quite that one. Sorry, Chris. The other one.
The comment
from the Gita.
Oh, forgive me.
So I was really enjoying hearing you read that then, and then I suddenly twigged.
The Mejta taught.
No.
So
Shall I read it?
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can read.
Okay, go on.
Chris, I think you found it. Yeah, go.
Thanks. Sorry, folks. Verse 29, chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita. In the life of every person, 2 forces of knowledge are operative from birth. Number 1, the power of human reason, along with its satellites of sensation, perception, conception, and so forth. Number 2, the power of intuition. The former is developed through the social institutions and interactions. The latter usually remains uncultured, undeveloped, because of want of proper guidance and methods of training.
Thank you, Chris. So yeah, that's what Guruji was planning to do, to actually give proper guidance and train these young people. So that was from the Gita, chapter 2, verse 29. And so he had these 7 boys, and a year later in 1918, he was given a very generous gift from Sir Manindra Chandra Nundi, which was the Maharaj of Kasim Bazar. And they all moved to Ranchi. So And then in that town, Bihar, about 200 miles from Calcutta, Guruji says that it's blessed with one of the most healthful climates in India. So I was really intrigued about this. So I started Googling about, what is it like there? And I think we have to remember that this was, a long time ago. So things have changed. So it probably isn't the exact same. But now in Bihar, in the summer, it says it's very hot and dry, and it's about 45 degrees, so quite hot, which is interesting. And then, in sort of June to October, it becomes very rainy. There's a lot of humidity, and then in wintertime, November to February, it's very cool and it's dry, and it could be 5 degrees to 25. So it's really getting cooler. And then back in back to summer again. So it's kind of got a range of different climates in the one place.
When I went there, from this description that Guruji gives in this book, I expected that this is where Ranchi Ashram is now. I expected for tall trees, like valleys, and a picturesque abode not dissimilar to Chris's background and his eco village, which I would say that's what I expected. But now it's very much a city. It's a full-blown city, and this is like a Ranchi Ashram is like a little park inside the city. It's quite big actually, but it is like a park inside the city. So back then, the city wouldn't have been as developed. So if it did have all this tree coverage and greenery, then it wouldn't have been as hot because shade from the trees and stuff. So I imagine it was a lot better back then, but now it's a very different scene, as Lauren kind of alluded to.
It's also got some other spiritual heritage in that. If it's true, the Bodhi tree, Frank, you might know about this, haven't been there, is in the region where the Buddha allegedly meditated.
Yeah, it's nearby. It's probably about 100 miles away.
Yeah, it's small in terms.
Yeah.
In the area.
I went there, yeah.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Spiritual fervor.
Yeah. Inspiring with all your little pilgrimages or big pilgrimages. So I was thinking about this exchange between Guruji and the Maharaj and giving opportunities for him to grow this school. And it really intrigued me because we hear about it here, but not in great detail. So I had a look in Megsta, and it's quite a lot of information in there that I thought was really interesting. So basically what happened was the school became quite large very quickly, from those 7 boys. So the Maharaj gave Guruji some of his property, which was a few miles from the palace that he lived in Bengal. But then the area was infested with malaria and a lot of people got really ill, the teachers and the students. So they temporarily moved the school to the guest house on the palace grounds, but people still were getting malaria. So then the Maharaj offered his summer palace at Ranchi in Bihar. So that's when they moved in 1918, and that's what Guruji's talking about then, about moving. And he didn't only give them the use of the buildings and the land, but he also gave them 2,000 rupees per month to help with the expenses of the school. It's quite amazing, isn't it? Really, you start off with 7 boys, and then the Maharaj is backing what you're doing because they see the value in it. So yeah, Guruji said how this 25-acre estate was a perfect location for this school that he'd founded, and there were all these luscious fruit orchards and spacious fields and a very healthful climate, and it was very serene and forest-like. So there you go, Priyanka had the trees, and it was really ideally suited for developing young minds and bodies alike. And when they were there, they were instructed outdoors, and they were taught subjects, not just your English, maths, and science. It was for their all-round development of body, mind, and soul. So he said at first it was a residential school and they had accommodation for 100 students. That's quite a lot, isn't it? I'm just going to pause before I carry on. Yeah, what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, it's nice to hear all this, isn't it? That somebody with the means, let's say, to support financially and materially steps in, and it's all sort of God's work in how I view it. You know, you do the right thing and God sort of pulls the strings, and you know, again, God flows through all of us. So it's just nice to see, because it was a vital part of Guruji establishing the SRF in the United States at the time as well, this donation work. And it's important that we all do that in some way towards the organizational efforts that others put forward into the world, that we support, we vote with our money. But yeah, it's just nice to see it. Just thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it is. It's very heartwarming, isn't it? And it's so heartwarming to note just how quickly it gained momentum and speed. You know, it starts off with 7, now he's got like 100, and now in measure it describes that it becomes even more of a thing. And it was saying that the high academic and spiritual standards of the school created such favorable publicity that soon the number of applicants exceeded accommodations 10 times over, which is amazing, isn't it? And then he said, every nook and cranny of the school was used and made serviceable, and the Maharaj was really overjoyed at this success. So, he's not only given his money, but he's invested in it emotionally, isn't he? And so then what happened was that he gave Mejda another plot of 15 acres with a large house called Madhukam House, which was on the outskirts of Ranchi. And Guruji started a school there for Aborigine students called Adivasi. And it was a primary school, and it had 5 students to begin with and 1 teacher. And then in 2 years, it was a grammar school, and then it had 100 students and 5 teachers. And then a boys' school was also started in the Puri Ashram of Sri Teshwar. So there's a lot of growth very quickly, which is a testament to Guruji and God's work, isn't it?
It's no small thing, 100 students. Can you imagine, that is quite a lot. Lauren, you can't imagine this.
Yes.
You're a teacher.
Yeah.
But there it just shows the demand at the time for this, and how he was able to start at that level, get the demand of 10 times. I think in the next part of the chapter we see it's even more. It jumps to even more. So it's really impressive that Guruji, not having had run a school before, can kind of jump in and do that right away. It seems it's a small detail to sort of almost gloss over, but it's still really impressive numbers.
What do you think?
Sorry, no, nothing.
No.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. You always have something. So, let's hear some more, shall we, about the school and what it was like and how Guruji was. It's really beautiful insight and so, so nice. So this is from Majda. Chris, would you be happy to start us off?
In all of the schools, the academic curriculum and spiritual routine were balanced with recreation, sports, and picnics and hikes to nearby scenic spots. All who had the opportunity to come into contact with Mejda knew that his spiritual ideals and precepts of justice could not be compromised. But his manner was so charming and his heart so loving that no one felt rejected or uncomfortable. His sweet smile was always present, and in the warmth of that glow, all hearts and minds were caught. On the other hand, when Mejda decided to get to the bottom of a matter or to make it a point of an issue, there was no avoiding the sharpness of his perception. His testing was severe indeed. The rules and regulations of the Ranchi Ashram school were strict, rising at 5 in the morning The boys lined up outside for group chanting and prayers. After bathing and cleaning their rooms, at 6 o'clock, they again met together for exercises and meditation. Mejta himself taught advanced methods of meditation to boys over 12 years old. It seems as though the school's perennial condition was one of barely meeting its financial obligations. The monthly grant from the Maharaja and the nominal room and board fees paid by the students were just enough to make ends meet. But all basic necessities were provided. The students wore the simple, coarsely woven clothes of villagers. Clothing was kept spotlessly clean, as were dormitory quarters and the ashram grounds.
Under Mejta's watchful eye, the ashram school flourished in an orderly manner. No undisciplined behavior escaped his attention, but he approached every interaction with love and understanding. He would draw the offender aside and explain to him clearly the consequences of his wrong action. He was so compassionate and understanding in his discipline that students were prompted to be good from the force of his love rather than the fear of punishment. Mejta was like a father and a friend to the boys. No one ever felt any hesitation to approach him with a personal problem or difficulty, knowing he would always be sympathetic and helpful. He participated with the boys in all their activities, even games. His presence in the school was a constant source of inspiration, hope, and reliance. To all the students and teachers, Mejta's word was like the word of God. He constantly spoke of the need of seeking God, for uniting heart, mind, and soul with him. And he inspired everyone to make that sincere spiritual effort. All those who came in contact with Mejta felt his power to open their hearts with a mere touch or look. They used to say that, like Jesus Christ, he could infuse his own spirituality into the hearts of his disciples to the degree that they themselves were receptive. Mejta taught that the very basis of spiritual development was right behavior, yama and niyama, a moral code based on religious statutes. Do you want to carry on, Lauren?
Yeah. And along with right behavior, he urged the harmonious development of body and mind. He said that a sick body aggravates the mind. A lazy mind destroys both health and spiritual development. To attain a significant degree of realization, one needs a sound mind in a healthy body and a positive mental attitude. Mejta was acquainted with the priest of the Ranchi Catholic Church. They frequently exchanged their views on religion and found a broad basis for understanding and agreement. The good father came often to the school on invitation from Mejta to explain the Bible to the boys, and as a consequence, the Bhagavad Gita was taught in comparative religion classes in the Catholic school. How lovely is that? That, he found such a common ground with the priest, and so much so that the priest then took the Gita to the Catholic school. That's amazing. And so touching to hear about how Guruji was with the students. And I feel like it's so instructional as well, particularly for me in the role that I'm currently playing in my job. It is very instructional. This is how you deal with like behavior or any type of thing that is out of line.
Quite high ideals though, aren't they?
Very. But lead with love, right? And I guess that goes for all of us, no matter what we're doing, even if we're not in an educational department or field. Just lead with love. That's it. But also, don't be a doormat as well. Yeah. So then, this place in Ranchi, in the palace, was the main building of the new school, and it was called Yogoda Satsanga Brahmacharya Vidyalaya. I'm probably butchering pronunciation. Priyank, how do we pronounce it?
Vidyalaya, yeah, Vidyalaya.
Vidyalaya. Okay. It comes with a footnote, interestingly enough. And this footnote breaks down the 4 stages of Vidyalaya school. And basically this is Brahmacharya here refers to one of the 4 stages in the Vedic plan for man's life. And these 4 stages are the celibate student, the brahmachari; 2, the householder with worldly responsibilities; 3, the hermit; and 4, the forest dweller or wanderer, free from all earthly concerns, sannyasi. And he says that, this scheme of life isn't widely observed in India, but it still has some very devout followers. And these stages are carried out under the direction of a guru. And this direction is lifelong as well. But it explains this a little bit more in the Gita, because, we've heard about the 4 stages, but what do they really mean? And how does that play out? What does that look like? So, Priyank, would you be okay to share with us what the Gita says?
So they call it the 4 ashrams and the divine plan for the conduct of life. In the early days, the ordinary family life was called a life of hermitage, ashram or discipline. The family man knew that there were 4 ashrams or shelters through which we must pass: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas, as Lauren just described in the footnote. Life then was not an endless struggle after money until all ended in disease and disillusionment. In ancient times, every child at the age of 7 entered brahmacharya ashram, or the hermitage of discipline that was in the charge of a wise guru preceptor. The child was thus freed from the more limiting environment of parents and family and social traditions. The students were given spiritual initiation, diksha, and received from the guru a sacred symbol, or the sacred thread, as an insignia of purity of life. The children were not permitted to mix with the opposite sex or with materially minded people.
Up to the 10th year, the brahmachari was taught the scriptures and meditational practices. In his 11th year, he learned the duties of a soldier for the protection of others. The following year, he was taught business methods and the art of proper dealings in worldly affairs. The young man remained in his guru's hermitage until his 20s. The second stage of his life then started. He returned to his family, took up a householder's duties, and begot children. At the age of 50, the man went back again to the forest hermitage, seeking fuller communion with God and spiritual training from the guru. This constituted the third, or forest hermitage, state of life. In this way, the individual first pursued spiritual and secular knowledge and practiced self-discipline. Then, with character formed, he entered family life. Later, giving half of his worldly possessions to his children and the other half to his guru's hermitage, the man, often with his wife, retired to the guru's place in the forest. The fourth, or final ashram, or disciplinary state of life, consisted in complete renunciation of all worldly ties. The man and his wife became homeless ascetics, wandering over India, receiving the veneration of all householders and bestowing on all receptive hearts the blessings of wisdom.
Mm.
Mm.
And so there are, as it mentioned, this is not widely followed in India, but there are people that follow it, and more people often than not send their children to a brahmachari kind of way of life, or under the direction of a guru, usually very traditional and religious people, but it does happen, and they'll walk around. You'll see them with like shaved heads and very basic way of life. But in terms of spiritual discipline, it's pretty phenomenal way to start your life, to set up your life. And then the latter phase, where you have like essentially complete renunciation from worldly ties, and you wander across India, pretty much homeless, is often seen in India by you'll see elder people that are doing this, and it's considered very beneficial to give alms to people that have voluntarily taken up this renunciant life. So usually um, people very generously give food and clothing and stuff to these people.
It's very inspiring, isn't it? To have been brought up on such high ideals and ways of being, and then you go and you go into the world, you get married, you have children. But I guess your partner do they usually marry within the same sort of setup where their partner has also done that to grow up? Is that
No,
what
no, no.
happens, or they just marry?
Usually only the boys that go through this
Yeah.
process,
Oh,
but it
okay.
obviously does
Interesting.
happen in terms of going to a school. It's like a boarding school, but
Yeah.
with under the direction of a spiritual master. But it obviously does happen with girls as well, but just
Yeah.
not as common.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. That's even more something, isn't it? If you're then with a partner who may not have the same lifestyle as you,
Oh
or the
no, yeah,
same
yeah,
principles, and yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It must be tough.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
But
know one of the monks here at not monks, sorry, one of the priests at the local Hare Krishna temple. We're very close with him, and he went through this schooling and this method of schooling under the direction of a guru, and he was saying it was like the best. He had the best upbringing ever, and like he is so well rounded. It's absolutely phenomenal. He can just socially is phenomenal. His like musical ability is phenomenal. His like ability to speak in crowds is phenomenal. So like whenever one of my family needs like a priest for a ceremony, we always just call him. He's just
oh,
fantastic. And then
wow,
no doubt he says he owes it all to his this. I wonder if he
wow.
will after the last stage go through that renunciant phase. That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
It's very inspiring to think, that it's only when they're sort of 50 years old that they start going, okay, now we retreat back and we dedicate more of our lives. Um, yeah. So this does actually conclude our episode for today. But we have more to look forward to next week. Chris had to leave, so I will summarize what he will be leading us into next time. So it's more about schooling. And Chris says that we'll look into more detail of how Guruji sets up a school. We'll talk about its success and the responsibilities of running an organization and the unseen spiritual benefits. We're going to be reading quotes from the Bible, along with Sri Yukteswara's interpretation of them. And we'll also look at how Guruji used the teachings of Yogoda and how it impacted the kids as they were adults. And we'll also see Guruji's father and have a bit more of an understanding about that relationship and delve more into that. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting and very revealing. Thank you so much, Priyank and Chris, when he was here, and everyone for listening. And